All right, so we're diving into ATF 41F today.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you're probably thinking, come here, ATF paperwork.
Yep,
Well, this one is a doozy,
it is.
especially when it comes to NFA trusts.
For sure.
We've got research papers, legal analyses, even some forum threads where people are really feeling the heat.
Oh, yeah. They're not happy.
So our mission today is to cut through all that noise and figure out what 41F really means for you.
Exactly. And that's key because 41F has thrown a few curveballs our way.
It has.
We're going to unpack how these changes impact both individuals and trusts.
Okay.
And trust me, there are some surprises in store for both.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
You might already know the basics. NFA covers things like suppressors,
Yay.
SPRs, SPSs, the fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
But 41F changes the rules of the game when it comes to actually getting your hands on these items.
Absolutely.
So one of the biggest changes centers around the Chief Law Enforcement Officer,
Right.
or CLEO.
Yep.
Remember how before 41F, both individuals and trusts needed that CLEO sign-off on their applications?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a big one.
Well, things have shifted,
They have.
and not always in the way you might expect.
Definitely not.
So let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
Before 41F, dealing with the CLEO was often a major pain point, especially if you had an unfriendly one.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually one of the reasons why many people turned to NFA trusts in the first place.
It was a big one.
So can you walk us through what an NFA trust is?
Sure.
And how it used to work?
Yeah, so an NFA trust is basically a legal entity, like a mini corporation.
Okay.
Specifically for your NFA items.
Okay.
It allowed for easier transfer of ownership, simplified estate planning,
Right.
and importantly, bypassed that CLEO sign-off.
Ah, very nice.
But 41F has kind of thrown a wrench into this setup. Yeah.
Yeah. So the changes for individuals seem straightforward at first glance. No more CLEO sign-off, just a notification.
Right.
Seems simple enough, right?
Yeah, on the surface.
But I have to admit, I'm a little concerned about the privacy aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Sending all that personal information to the CLEO with no real oversight. It feels a bit unsettling, doesn't it?
It's definitely something to consider. I mean, while the intent might be to streamline the process,
Right.
the lack of clear guidelines on how that information is handled does raise some eyebrows.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why we always recommend sending those notifications via certified mail. At least you have proof of receipt and a bit more peace of mind.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So while individuals get a slightly easier path, 41F has made things a bit more complicated for trusts.
Definitely more complicated.
It's like the ATF decided to play a game of Jenga with our paperwork.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
The biggest change is the introduction of this responsible person concept.
Okay.
Now, everyone listed on the trust who has access to NFA items needs to undergo the same background checks and fingerprinting as an individual applicant.
So let's say you have a trust with your spouse and 2 adult children listed. Does that mean each of them needs to submit fingerprints and photos along with the application?
Yes.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It can be. It's definitely more involved. You'd be submitting responsible person forms, fingerprints, and photos for each person on the trust, along with your standard Form 4.
Wow.
And here's the kicker. You still need to send those responsible person forms to your CLEO.
Oh, come on.
Talk about double the paperwork.
So it's not just a matter of everyone on the trust getting fingerprinted once.
Yep.
You're basically repeating the process for every single NFA item you want to add to the trust.
That's right.
That's got to be frustrating for trust owners.
Absolutely, but there is a silver lining.
Okay.
A provision in 41F that I like to call the get-out-of-jail-free card.
Interesting.
It's not as simple as just drawing a card and avoiding jail, though.
Right.
There are specific conditions you need to meet.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this get-out-of-jail-free card.
Okay, so if your trust has an approved application within the past 2 years, and there have been no changes to the trust itself,
Okay.
you might be able to skip a lot of this extra paperwork.
So potentially you'd only need to submit the Form 4 for the new NFA item and a certification letter stating that nothing in the trust has changed.
Exactly.
That could save a lot of time and hassle.
For sure.
But what about those who haven't had an approved application in the past 2 years
Yeah.
or have made changes to their trust?
Yeah.
They're out of luck.
Unfortunately, it seems that way. And this raises an important question.
That.
What kind of impact will all these new requirements have on ATF processing times?
Yeah, that's a good question. We already know the wait can be lengthy, but with this potential influx of paperwork, are we looking at even longer wait times?
It's possible.
Remember those e-forms we submitted a while back?
Yeah.
The wait times seem to be creeping up, and we're even hearing whispers that paper forms might be coming back faster these days.
Really?
It's almost like a guessing game, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And that brings us to the great e-form versus paper form debate.
Oh, yeah.
It's a question we get asked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the answer isn't always clear-cut.
You know, it's funny. When e-forms first came out, it seemed like the future had arrived.
I know, right?
Faster processing times, online tracking, no more messy paperwork.
Yeah,
It sounded like a dream come true.
it did.
But now, with these 41F changes and the potential for even longer wait times, I'm starting to wonder if those old-school paper forms might be making a comeback.
There's definitely a sense that the pendulum might be swinging back a bit. The ATF has been pushing e-forms hard,
Right.
and they do offer some undeniable advantages.
For sure.
The online system, when it's working properly,
Right.
can be more efficient. You can track your application's progress,
Yeah.
make payments electronically, and avoid the hassle of snail mail.
Yeah.
And it's a big BUT.
Oh, boy.
The system isn't always as smooth and seamless as it's advertised to be.
You and I both know the frustration of dealing with e-form glitches, system crashes,
Yeah.
and those dreaded error messages.
Oh, don't even get me started.
And what's even more frustrating is the lack of clear guidance on how to resolve these issues.
Right.
You're often left feeling like you're navigating a digital labyrinth with no map or compass.
Exactly. And that's where paper forms, for all their old school charm, can offer a sense of control and tangibility.
Okay.
You know exactly what you're submitting. You can double check every detail.
Uh-huh.
And there's something reassuring about physically mailing those forms off and knowing they're on their way.
Plus, there's no risk of your application getting lost in cyberspace
Right.
or falling victim to a system crash.
Exactly.
It's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Haha, I love that one.
Sometimes the tried and true methods are still the most reliable.
For sure. And when you factor in the uncertainty surrounding e-form processing times,
Right.
especially in light of these 41F changes, paper forms might be worth considering.
So it sounds like the best approach is to weigh the pros and cons of each method. Consider your personal comfort level with technology, and perhaps even factor in a bit of intuition.
Yeah.
It's almost like choosing between a sleek, modern sports car and a trusty vintage pickup truck.
I like that.
Both will get you to your destination, but the journey will be vastly different.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of the journey, are there any tips or tricks you've picked up along the way that might help our listeners navigate the NFA process a little more smoothly, regardless of which form they choose?
Absolutely. One of the most important things is to be meticulous with your paperwork. I know it sounds obvious,
Yeah.
but you'd be surprised how many people trip up on simple things, like legible handwriting, incomplete forms, or missing signatures.
Oh, yeah. It happens more than you think.
Remember, the ATF is looking for any reason to delay or reject your application.
Yep.
So make their job easier by submitting a flawless package.
It's like showing up for a job interview in your best attire, with a polished resume and a firm handshake.
Exactly.
You want to make a good first impression and show the ATF that you're serious about this process?
Exactly. And another crucial tip is to understand the legal implications of NFA ownership. This isn't just about acquiring cool firearms.
Right.
It's about taking on a significant legal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Make sure you know the ins and outs of the law, especially as they pertain to your state and local jurisdiction.
It's like getting behind the wheel of a car. You wouldn't just hop in and start driving without knowing the rules of the road, right?
Nope.
NFA ownership is similar. You need to understand the laws and regulations before you take possession of those items.
Right. And while we're on the topic of responsibility, let's not forget about proper storage and security. NFA items are valuable and highly regulated, so it's crucial to store them safely and securely, both to prevent theft and to comply with ATF regulations.
Think of it like protecting your most prized possessions. You wouldn't leave a valuable piece of jewelry or a rare collectible lying around unattended, would you?
No way.
NFA items deserve the same level of care and attention when it comes to storage.
And let's not forget about transportation.
Yeah.
Transporting NFA items across state lines can get tricky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It requires additional permits and approvals.
Yeah.
So make sure you plan ahead, do your research, and ensure you're following all the necessary regulations. It's not something you want to get caught slipping on.
It's like planning a road trip. You wouldn't just hit the road without knowing the route, checking for road closures and making sure your vehicle is in top shape.
Right.
Transporting NFA items requires that same level of meticulous planning and preparation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the pros and cons of e-forms versus paper forms, shared some insider tips and tricks, and emphasized the importance of responsible ownership. But there's one more aspect of NFA ownership that we haven't touched on yet, and
Oh,
it's something that I think is incredibly important.
I think I know where you're going with this. It's something that often gets overlooked, but it can make all the difference in your NFA journey.
You're right on the mark. We've talked about the regulations, the paperwork, the wait times. But what often gets lost in all of that
Mm.
is the sense of community that exists within the NFA world.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes it feels like we're navigating this complex world alone.
Right.
But there's a whole network of passionate and knowledgeable people out there who share our interests
Yeah.
and are always willing to lend a hand.
It's like discovering a hidden treasure map.
Uh-huh. I like that.
And suddenly you realize there are others out there on the same quest,
Right.
eager to share their discoveries and help you navigate the pitfalls.
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to tap into this community is through online forums and groups dedicated to NFA topics.
Oh, yeah.
These are gold mines of information, advice, and camaraderie.
For sure.
You can find answers to your questions, share your experiences, and connect with people who understand the unique challenges and joys of NFA ownership.
I've learned so much from those forums.
Same here.
And it's always reassuring to know that you're not alone in this. It's like having a virtual support group where everyone speaks the same language and understands the intricacies of Form 4's trust legalities
Yep.
and the ever-changing ATF landscape.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of face-to-face interactions.
Oh, yeah.
Attending local gun shows and events is a fantastic way to meet fellow NFA enthusiasts, see these amazing firearms firsthand,
Right.
and learn from experienced owners.
There's something special about that shared energy and passion you find at those events.
It really is.
You can talk, shop, swap stories, and even get hands-on with some of the latest and greatest NFA items.
It's like going to a concert or a sporting event with people who share your interests. The atmosphere is electric.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into ATF 41F and the world of NFA trusts, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Embarking on the NFA journey is not just about acquiring cool firearms.
Right.
It's about joining a community of like-minded individuals who share a deep appreciation for history, craftsmanship, and responsible ownership.
Well said. It's a journey that requires patience, attention to detail, and a willingness to learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who embrace the challenge, the rewards are truly immeasurable.
Couldn't agree more. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way. We'll continue to provide in-depth analysis, practical advice,
Yep.
and a healthy dose of humor to help you navigate the complexities of NFA ownership.
We're in this together. So stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, stay safe.
Until next time, happy shooting.